for me to watch.
Oh, all right. We're live, guys. I've got I'm very honored to have Mr. Joa Silva. Am I saying that right?
It's João.
Joao. I love
Yeah,
that I know how to say it now because in my mind, I've said it like 100 times over the past week because, I've been looking forward to this interview. And I'm like, it's either Joa or Jawa. Can you repeat it for me
yeah,
one more time?
João.
I love it. So, how are you, Mr. Joao?
I'm great.
I hope
I'm
I can
really
say
good.
that
I've
right.
just yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm never really bothered when people mispronounce it or whatever. So like, don't worry at all.
Thank you so
Like
much.
I'm doing pretty good. It's I just submitted my novella to the self-published novellas fantasy competition that opened up half an hour ago. So I'm still
That's
kind of riding the
right.
hype.
I remember
Yeah.
you because originally we had this for a half an hour prior, but you told me about that, and I said, you know what, take the stress out of it. We'll do it 30 minutes later. So, where is what? Tell me about that
Yeah,
contest.
it's this is the first year that it's taking place. It's essentially a competition where fantasy, sci-fi, basically all sort of speculative fiction novellas that are published by small presses and self-published.
Hmm.
They can just enter. And I think they have 100 slots, and then I guess there's going to be 10 blogs, if I'm not mistaken, that act as the judges, and then they pick semifinalists and finalists, and then the winner at the end.
That is awesome. I love the fact that people are finding their love in self pub and smaller press, as
Yeah,
I finally have, and it's really cool to see because you talk to self pub authors and every one of you guys work so hard. Not saying that traditionally published authors aren't hard workers, absolutely work very hard, and but especially self pub or indie authors, because you guys often have a 9 to 5 as well. So you're taking your ambitions and you're doing what you have to do at the same time. And to me, it's just like lots of respect, lots of inspiration, and the drive to
thanks, man.
follow your passion is there to the max. I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
see at least.
Yeah, I think
Um,
the beauty of I think the beauty for me at least, the beauty of self-publishing is that um, the goals can be completely different depending on who you are and what your situation is, what your family life looks like. It can be 100% different. Some people are looking to quit their jobs to just do publishing and just write books, and
mhm.
some people are pretty happy with their day jobs and they just want to use it as a hobby. Like have some fun, write some books, get some people reading their books. And I think it's really fun that you can pretty much fulfill whatever itch you need to be scratched. It's like I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I like that because Brian Wilson, he wrote The Forsaken Planet, another self-pub author I've had on as for an interview. He builds homes and obviously
Yeah,
that's a pretty good living, and he takes care of his family. He's got kids and a wife. And, I really look up to that because he's taking care of his own, and he's also like, I wrote a book and I published it myself. I did that,
yeah,
and to me that's really cool, and I just really look up to it. So
thanks, man.
automatically the highest respect for you already. Didn't even have to talk to you
Thank you.
yet, and I already respect the heck out of you, man. So you
Thank you
were
very much.
born absolutely. So you're born in Portugal. That's
Yeah,
really cool. So tell us about it.
yeah. No, I'm just a Portuguese guy basically.
That's really cool.
I was born there, lived there until I was probably 23, and then I came to the UK, and that's where I am at the moment. I've been a bit of a nomad since I left Portugal. I've been for the past 14 years. I think I've lived in 14 different houses in like
Wow.
three different countries, like 5 or 6 different cities. So it's like I've been all over the place, trying to find roots somewhere that I can grow.
I don't think there's
Uh,
anything cooler to me personally than culture and
yeah,
learning like what is different about from Portugal to the UK. It's like you're in London, right?
yeah. At the
That's
moment, I'm
so
in London.
cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
What's the biggest cultural change?
Cultural change, I would say it's got to do with how enormous London is. Like as it's one of the biggest cities in Europe, and Portugal is one of the smallest countries in Europe. So the scale of things is different, and the pace of life is different. The weather is different. Uh, Although I would say that by the time I came here, I was pretty familiar with British culture because we do get a lot of UK tourists in Portugal. So I was pretty familiar with, British culture as a whole. I had come to the UK when I was like 14 or 15 years old, just for like a week, and I had fallen in love with the UK and with London. So it
I
ended up
love
being my
that.
place to live.
So you already kind of knew where you were going when you moved. You were like,
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
been there and I
the
kind of know what to
idea was
expect.
like, yeah, the idea was to go to a place where I could use language skills. Like obviously, English is not my main native language, so I had to. But I've basically been learning English since I was like a teen, pretty much. So I wanted to go to a place where I could find better job opportunities and all that stuff. So I think London and the UK in general really fits the bill.
I would have never guessed that that wasn't what you growed up speaking, because you absolutely speak it very, very clear and concise. There's like,
Oh,
that's
thanks, man.
impressive to go from, because when you learn your language, it's like you learn it at a time when your brain is it's forming, and then to learn another whole language, I've tried. It's really hard. So
Yeah,
congrats
yeah,
on that. Um,
yeah. Thanks.
so I was wondering how has been, I'm so sorry. I had a long day.
It's okay.
What was being a part of the jury of the 2020 and the 2022 British Fantasy Awards? What was that like, and what did that entail? Because I'm not familiar with it, and I'd love to be.
Yeah, so it's actually a very simple process, and I think anyone who's a British resident can technically apply. So there's not really any sort of requirements. You don't have to be, a big shot author. You don't have to be anything, because I wasn't anything like that, and I still am not a big shot author or anything like that. But in 2020, the first time I applied, I just applied because I saw that they were looking for people that are like not necessarily like the cookie cutter, like traditional people who go to the cons and things like that. And I was quite new
Mhm.
to the scene, especially in the UK. And I just applied and I ended up getting accepted. So I don't really know what their criteria is to select people, but I basically listed the fact that I tend to be a very avid reader of the genre, and I really follow the debuts, like traditional self-published. Like I really follow up-and-coming books. So the award that I ended up being selected to be the jury in was the Newcomer Award. So
Wow.
basically, in 2020, I believe the person who won was I'm escaping at the moment. I think it was the She Who Becomes the Sun by
Okay.
Shelley Parker Chan, and it was a brilliant book. So basically, the whole selection process is there's a jury of I think 6 or 7 people, and we all read all the books that are nominated, and then we all sort of try to find a consensus. And it's really up to the jury to decide how we come up with that consensus. Do we come up with grades? Do we grade each book, and then the book with the highest grades takes the crown? Or sometimes it can also just be like, what was your favorite? And if everybody says the same, or if the majority says the same, then that one ends up being the winner. So it's actually a very chill and very simple process. And I like that it is like that, because it removes all sorts of biases from people who are too involved in the scene, and then they end up voting for their own friends and for people that they know.
Right.
And this way they still get votes from people who are passionate about the genre, and they're following the new debuts and the entire scene very closely, but without the biases, essentially.
I think that's incredibly important. I'm glad you touched base on that. What a cool experience that sounds like. And
Yeah,
for
it's really fun.
for being somebody who's passionate about fantasy, obviously, I think that would be one of the coolest jobs ever. So congrats on that. And that's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
But
And I
hey,
got
for
3 books as well.
oh man, that's my
Yeah.
gig, because look, I love reading and I can't wait to have just more books. I don't know why, but you know how it
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
down to the meat and potatoes, as they say. What's the name of your series that you're writing right now in the first book?
Yeah. So the series is called the Smokesmiths. And this is the first book. Seeds of
Oh,
War.
it's beautiful.
And yeah, it's called the Smokesmiths because the people who are the magic users in the book series are the Smokesmiths, and I think this is a series that is about them in the end. Um, and I don't really want to spoil too much, but essentially it's people who use smoke and they manipulate a special kind of smoke to do magic and to have abilities in combat and all sorts of cool stuff. And yeah, that's really what gave the name to the series.
I think that's so majestic. Smoke in itself is just an elegant thing. I don't really know other than just to say elegant, or I can see how that would be super interesting, how to manipulate that. Such a cool idea. Where did that stem from? Was there a particular idea you had before writing, or?
Yeah, there's it's the interesting thing about being a writer and a world builder is that you really pull ideas from all sorts of weird and wacky places. Really, like at least it is the case for me. The idea for the Smokesmiths came from I was listening to a band called The Sword. I think they're from Texas. I think they disbanded
Yep,
recently,
I've heard of them.
and they're really good. Like I mean, I like that kind of like psychedelic rock type. Um, and anyway, one of the songs that they were singing about, I don't remember what the name of the song is, but part of the lyrics says something about sacred smoke. And when I listened to it, I was trying to come up with cool ideas and magic systems, and I was basically feeding what I call my world building library. It's like an Excel spreadsheet full of just random ideas that I just shove in there. And that one really stood out. I was really um, I was really I found it really fascinating, and then I started kind of crafting it. It was like, okay, it's a sacred smoke. What would that look like, and what would they burn to do the smoke, and what can they achieve with the smoke, and like, how does that work? Do they have to pay anything, or is there a cost to using this magic? Do they pay with their bodies and with their health, and or do they have to like activate something else, or so it kind
Sure.
of really went from there. And at the time, I was using this magic system in another book that ended up never having seen the light of day, and it
Oh,
probably never will because it just really wasn't good enough.
kind of like a stepping stone, huh?
Exactly. So I
Oh,
just
awesome.
recycled. So the book wasn't good enough, but the magic system was. So I
Okay.
recycled it into this series itself. Yeah.
I love that idea because you found something you're like, it's not like you planned on hearing those lyrics and being inspired. That's never a choice. So you found
Yeah.
something, it was natural, it was pure in the moment, and you just rode with it, and it became something so beautiful. Uh, I know
Okay.
from just being in the community, the short period of time that I have been, you've got a great thing going. I've heard nothing but amazing things. So
Thanks,
I
man.
think that it's so cool because imagine you not hearing those lyrics. What would we be doing right now? Isn't
Yeah.
that
I
odd?
don't
It's
know.
so cool to think, man.
Yeah.
I guess that's where my head goes.
It's true. I mean, it's very true. If you think about it, I could have been doing something completely different. Like the book, maybe I would have never finished the book because maybe I wouldn't have never thought the book was good enough. Or, it just could have really anything could have happened.
Infinite
Yeah,
numbers of possibilities, and this is the one that happened. And wow,
exactly. Yeah.
that's incredible. So the first book, what is it called? Seeds of War. You
Yeah,
showed the
that's it.
cover, and it's so beautiful. And I was
Mhm.
telling you before we got on here, I get the cover art a lot and try to put it in our background for our talks, and a lot of the time it doesn't really format the right way because I can't do that myself. I use StreamYard, and it's really good. But sometimes just the cover art doesn't really work for this, and yours works brilliantly. So I'm
Yeah,
very happy to see that.
it
Um,
looks really good. Yeah,
I think so too. I like the pain in his face. It's like that guy's got a story, and I think I want to hear it and read about it. You know?
that's all I care about is people having that reaction.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It was my instant reaction, by the way. So
No,
great
that's good
choice
to
with the
hear.
cover art. Yes, sir. So your main characters, from my understanding, there's three. And what inspired you to uh, create these characters in particular? One female and two males, correct?
Yeah, that's it. So we have Gimlor, Orberesis, and Red now. Gimlor is basically the first point of view character that we got introduced to in the first 2 chapters of the book, and she is, I guess, the summary for her is essentially she's a single mother, war veteran turned crime boss, and she is, I would say, she is what I would call feisty. I mean, I guess it really depends on people's opinions on what kind of characters they like to read, but I think she was one of my favorite characters ever to write because she really does not take shit from anyone. Oh, sorry, I don't know if
Awesome.
I can say the
You
word.
absolutely say it as often as you please, my guy.
Okay, okay, fine. She doesn't take shit from anyone, and yeah, I I guess the idea for her was that at the time I was watching a lot of like TV shows, and I was reading a lot of fantasy books, and I noticed a lot of trends and a lot of tropes that I was getting a little tired of. And one
Okay.
of them was the teenage farm boy saves the world. And
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think we all have books with that trope that we enjoy a lot, and we probably grew up reading these books, right? And I still, still to this day, like there are books that do it really, really well or have really interesting takes on that trope. But I was a little tired of it at the time, so I decided to think about, okay, what is the most different thing from a teenage protagonist? Like, what is the absolute opposite of that? And then I was like, okay, instead of one character saving the world, you have 3 main characters, and instead of one teenager, you have a single mom, middle-aged single
Okay.
mom, and an elderly man. And then I ended up with Orberesis somehow, kind of in the middle as the third main point of view character, because I think he's around middle, like in his 30s, and he's just chronically ill. He has like a chronic illness. So I just wanted the characters to be a bit different. It's like I didn't want them to be the typical heroes who save the world and fight evil. Like I wanted them to be a bit more complex, to have their own shades of evil, whatever evil means in this world. Um, you know, I wanted them to feel like real people in a way, and interesting people that you could follow, even if you don't like them all the time, even if you think that they're doing wrong things. Um, I wanted them to be somewhat relatable, or at least have relatable and redeemable features. Like I think, Gimlor, she can come across very brash and abrasive,
Hmm.
but as you read her pages, I think most readers will understand that where she's coming from with her background and her backstory and everything. And the same with the other 2 characters. Really, I think obviously I don't have enough page time to explore the backstory and then the actual story of all the characters and things like that.
Hmm.
But I think, yeah, I think that's pretty much where the ideas came from for these 3 characters.
I love that because I think that if we all sat and thought, we have an example in all of our lives of those 3 types of people. So relatable, it's realistic. I love a strong female character. And before I forget, I wanted to say, Tom Bookbeard said that Seeds of War is one of his top reads in 23, outstanding debut novel. How does that feel, honestly, as an author? How does that feel?
It's kind of unbelievable and
Oh,
outrageous at the same time. I think it's just props to Tom. Tom has been one of my ARC readers. Like he was actually one of the first, maybe 20 to 30 people to read the book. So it was, yeah, before he was even out, I think he read it.
that's so
Yeah, and
cool.
it's mind blowing to have people say it's one of their favorite reads, because to me, like, I just didn't expect it at all. I was I was querying this book to be traditionally published before I decided to go
Hmm.
self publishing, and I wasn't getting any love from traditional publishing at all. It's like I got some requests here and there from agents, but I think from like 100 and something agents, only half of them even replied to my query.
Wow.
And I knew for a fact that I was following all the rules and doing everything. So I guess the problem really for them was with the book itself. So it's really fascinating to me to see that so many people the actual readers, who is the only people that I really care about, if they actually love the book. It's like, I mean, I know
I
it's not going to appeal to everyone, but
right,
yeah,
but
it's just mind blowing.
I think that what you just talked about and stated and pressed upon was a huge thing, because I've heard both sides now of being potentially traditionally published, and I've spoken to an author who was um, getting love, as you like, which based on what you were saying, from the publishers, and he chose to still go self-pub because, you know, he wasn't in charge as much as he wanted to be anymore. It wasn't going to be the book that he wanted. And he, bravo to those people who can say, you know what, it's just not for me. And I don't think you know everything just because that's your job to be
Yeah,
somebody who picks and chooses who can be published and whatnot. So
yeah,
respect for that, but also equal amount of respect for people who deal with a publisher saying maybe not right now, or getting denied, and still going ahead and saying, I believe in my book and I'm
yeah,
going to do what I think is right. And look what it did for you, man. That's a huge
yeah,
statement.
yeah. I mean, I'm honestly so grateful. I think grateful is really the only word I can say, because I also know, like, I just wanted to give a little nod. Like you mentioned, uh, the people who keep going even though they keep getting rejections
Yes.
from traditional publishing. I still have quite a few friends who are still in the query trenches, and very stoically so. Like, they're really pushing
Yeah.
the writing multiple books. Some of them get rejected, some of them get a bit more love than others, but they keep pushing. And I think it's like, it's kind of almost unappreciated how perseverant, and so how, like, resilient some writers can be. Like, the thick skin that you need to build is absolutely
Mm.
insane. So, like, I decided not to write other books and to just go self-publishing with this one, because I loved the story, and I think other people would love it as well. Uh, and I'm just really grateful that it's been received the way that it has, because it's it could have not seen the light of day.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And man, bravo, congrats on that decision, and for the rest of your career doing whatever you want to do. But this is
oh
great. I
yeah,
love it, and I respect your tenacity. That's the word. I was looking for the word. And I think the people you were talking about, that's on the word that I would use for them too. Uh,
yeah,
it takes some real balls to say, I know you're denying me, but guess what? Watch this next book I'm about to put out, or watch these edits, because when I throw it back at you, you're gonna, you know what I mean? It
yeah.
takes somebody really mind strong to accept that
And it's
loss.
and it's mind blowing to me as well, because, like, I've read some of these books from some of these writers that are keep getting denied, and some of their books are amazing. It's like,
Yeah,
maybe they just don't fit the market or whatever, but it's like, there's a lot of really good unpublished books out there. Like, they're
I've been
being in the
amazed.
shelf and, like, sitting in Word documents in people's computers. And it's like, I understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to self-publish. Like, I'm not one of those self-publishing evangelists. I don't want to evangelize anyone and tell people, oh, you have to self-publish. Why don't you self-publish? I don't really like that, and I would never say that to a friend who wants to be traditionally published.
Mhm.
But it's like, they have really good manuscripts, like, and a lot of them I think would do really well in self-publishing. But it's a choice. People make their own decisions. Yeah.
Mr. John A. Douglas, he's got a book
Hey,
he's working on right now. He dropped in and said hello. If you guys haven't checked his stuff out, he's got really good podcasts. He's got really cool interviews. He likes to stop in on mine, so I like to throw some appreciation out there.
yes.
So, all right, back to your book. So, how many installments do you plan, or do you have a number? Or are you going to kind of just take it as it goes? I know you've
It's
got your novella out, and I wanted to highlight that underneath here. If you
I
guys
see
haven't
that.
read it,
Yeah,
go sign up for his newsletter. What's the website?
it's www.joaofsilva.net.
What a
And that's
better way
essentially.
for an author or as a reader to, hey, I really like this guy's story. I want to go see if I like his writing too. What a better way to get familiar with somebody's writing and the world they're about to take this journey in than to offer that. I think that's really cool what you guys are doing. Lots of people do that, and I think it's a great marketing skill.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's necessary, especially with the competition being so tough and there being so many I mean, I say competition, but it's not really a competition because we're all like on the same side. But
Sure.
there's so many, as you know, from the perspective of the readers, like there's so many good books and appealing books out there that I think for self-publishing authors to succeed, you kind of have to, find some ways to get ahead and like to basically remove all sorts of barriers between you and the reader. And one way of doing that is, instead of, okay, like, you're not really sure about how you feel about me, and like you like the cover but you don't really want to buy the book just yet. So here you are. You can just sign up to my newsletter and you get a free book. It's a novella. It's not a full-length novel. It's got 130 pages, and you can read it 100% for free. You can unsubscribe to my newsletter if you want afterwards. Like, I don't really mind. And you can see if you like my writing. You can see if you like my writing style, like how the book feels like, and then it's less of a commitment, because if you already read something and you liked it, then you can buy the book.
Absolutely. And one of the things, unfortunately, though, I think that it does is, for me, I know how much work it takes. Well, I don't know exactly, but I know better than the average person because I talk to you guys all the time who write books. That novella took you time, and it took dedication and
Yeah.
lots of work. So, you guys that sign up for the newsletters, just know also that that's lots of time and dedication and trying to get your attention and trying to get your interest in the books that you write.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure to
I
point
always
that
try
out.
to reward my newsletter subscribers in some way. Like, I mean, I get, they get the free novella, they get 2 free short stories, they get, they're pretty much the first people to know whenever I'm doing a promo or whatever I'm announcing something. I just write it in my newsletter first. So like, I always want to reward the fact that they trusted me with their emails and with their, with their, yeah, just basically with their subscription.
For
So
sure.
it's like, but yeah, it is like you said, it is a long time. It's just a lot of time and effort. But I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's like the readers have been really supportive. Like, I get people emailing me back on the newsletter every time I post something, and they're super supportive. I mean, I love reading the emails that people write
Oh,
back.
that's got to be
It's
amazing.
honestly amazing. Yeah.
What better than to like forget, like wake up in the morning, grab your coffee, and go read some positive emails.
Man, it's
'Cause
great.
not everybody gets to do that kind of thing, and you do. That's incredible, and you put the work in. You deserve it.
Oh,
So
thanks, man.
I guess kind of back to my question: have you really came up with like a number of installments, or are you going to kind of just see where it takes you?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of the two, really. So like, I've got the book 1 is out, the prequel novella is out, and I've got book 2 that I have the first draft that's pretty much done. But I need to, obviously, the first draft is like nowhere near being publishing ready. And then I know for a fact that I'm doing book 3 as well, and I think I might do another kind of spin-off novella somewhere in between. So I'm still trying to figure out what's the timeline of this. Like, how am I going to do this? And depending on how I wrap up book 3, there might be more books in this world. Uh, um, I'm not sure if it's going to be another series set in other parts of the world, or if it's going to be like a direct continuation of this series, like maybe with a different timeline, or like in the future, like something like that. I still don't really know. Oh, thanks, John.
Mhm.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah,
So
so like, yeah, I'm not really sure how it's going to go beyond book 3, uh, but it might go beyond book 3. Yeah.
that's cool. And as somebody that wants to read all of the things that you come out with, you're gonna have a lot of those people who are so loyal. And it sounds like you already do, and you're loyal to those people as well. It's what I'm hearing. Um,
Man, like, if I'm not loyal to the people who support me since day one, like, who am I going to be loyal to? It's like some people have been. Every time I post something, they tweet every single thing I post. Like,
isn't it refreshing?
it's amazing. I mean, I'm still kind of blown away by that, but it's absolutely amazing. I've got, the novella that I just wrote, Ruins of Smoke. It was dedicated it to these people, to like my ARC readers and the beta readers and like all the reviewers that basically picked up the book when I was literally no one. It's like before my book was out, like I had a few short stories out, but it's always really hard for people to trust a debut author and like, okay, like,
Yeah.
we'll read your stuff, like, and I think a lot of debut authors really struggle to get some traction going with reviewers and ARC. It's really hard to get people to read your stuff. And I
Yes.
think I was really lucky. And I think it was part luck because I approached the right people. Like, I studied a lot of people's tastes and I know what kind of books they like. And, I really think you're going to like this. And I guess it cascaded and, people hear about other people posting about the book, so they're curious about it as well. But it's honestly like really like refreshing, like you said, and also like it's mind blowing. Yeah.
I love that. You kind of touched on, so when I first started doing what I'm doing, I haven't been around very long, maybe 3.5 or 4 months now. I thought that I would just do a couple book reviews here and there. Had no idea about indie authors or books, but I've niched down and I found my passion. And it's so crazy. Like what you were saying, I just wanted to relate to you for a second. My thoughts going into this was, there's not an author within this world that's going to give me any sort of chance. And wow, was I wrong. Every single author I've reached out to has been overwhelmingly kind, incredibly gracious, thoughtful, considerate. And wow, man, it's like there's not many things in this world where you get blown away that drastically. So I understand that feeling, that kind of what you're talking about. It's really cool.
That's because like I think the support that you get is because you guys are the real heroes of this stuff. It's like without reviewers and without bloggers and without people that are active in the community that do everything a lot of the times without asking for anything in return. It's like,
oh yeah,
you guys are the real heroes to me. Like it's like
it
honestly, like it really does, and it shows, and it shows in the stuff that you guys put out, in the videos that you put out. Like how many hours does it take to edit videos and things like that,
right.
and just reading the books and reviewing and everything. It takes so damn long, and you guys do it for the love of it. I mean, so I think we as authors, we can really relate to that, because until we get published and until our books get some traction, most of us have got a few years down the road that are already past where we were not doing anything. We were just like working on craft and, maybe like getting some beta readers to read our books, but, nothing that's really, really worth publishing. So it's like, it takes time to build a sort of rapport with the community and the people that you're trying to reach. And I think at least as authors are concerned, I mean, you guys, for me, are the real heroes of this.
Yeah, it was cool to kind of like stumble upon a passion. Like it doesn't happen very often. Like usually how it happens is you have an interest and you follow it, you try it out. If you like it, you don't. And then eventually, if it's going to be a passion, you end up loving it. This one, it was like, I don't remember who was the first or the last or what. I ended up talking to quite a few different self-pub authors, and I'm here now, and this is absolutely where I'm staying. I'd rather, there's nothing else I would rather do with my time, my free time, than represent people who work just as hard towards their ambitions and their desires and their inspirations as much as they do usually like a day job and taking care of their family and all that. It's just a really cool thing. And the stories are always unique. You guys we're all human, and cultures. That's awesome. I love the bringing together of people, period. And so that's so cool. I really enjoyed your story about your inspirations and how you've taken the book community as well, how they just put this trust in you and just do it because they love to. So that's really cool, man. John says, never doubt that there are those of us who truly value what the indie fantasy movement is doing. You aren't writing in a void. That's a good point. And I think that kind of just backs up what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Corey, he's another self-pub author. I just had him on a little while ago. This new trend of free novellas as a teaser to these worlds is amazing. It's an author pouring their heart into something. He's exactly right, because without that ambition, you're not going to put that time into giving somebody something for free. It
Yeah.
really takes that extra bit of oomph and
Yeah.
like confidence in what you're offering people. Like, look, I know you're gonna like it. Just let's sample it real quick so I can get you to, so you can really see what I do and what I'm about.
Exactly.
So I really think that's cool. So do you remember the moment in your life when you were like, I'm gonna be a writer? What was that aha moment for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's one specific aha moment, but I think there were two kind of periods where I thought about it. So like when I was a kid, still living in Portugal, and like I don't know how it is in the US or like the UK or other parts of the world, but like in Portugal, for the Portuguese classes, I guess it's like the equivalent of your English classes. Um, we for the exams, like we do like 6 exams a year,
Mhm.
and every at the end of every exam, there's like a 300 to 400 words kind of like mini essay that you have to write about a given topic.
Yeah,
It's kind of just for the teachers to see how your writing is, and like
like a
can
book
you
report.
even like express your thoughts and that kind of stuff. And that was always my favorite part of the exams, and I was just like free writing and like thinking about something and just coming up with words. And as a kid, like the dream was like I want to be an author and I want to make a living as an author. But
Mhm.
then, like getting older, it starts to realize, okay, authors don't actually make much money, like they cannot make a living. And now that I'm writing in English, not in Portuguese anymore, and Portuguese market is super tiny, by the way, for books,
Oh, okay.
self-published or traditionally published. It's like extremely small.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot less people that speak the language, and the ones who do are not necessarily the most avid readers. So
That
it's very
okay.
tiny. Yeah. So but basically now writing in English, it's a completely different story. And then um, after I moved to the UK, I was talking with my wife at the time. I think it was like 2017 or something like that. And I had free time. My day job was going fine. I had a house over, like I had a roof over my head. I had a house. Like I still have to pay the bills and work and do the day job and everything. But I had
Absolutely.
I had a lot of free time, and so I talked to her, and like I've always wanted to write as a kid, and she's like, "Why are you not doing that?" And then
Oh,
I was like, "That's a very good point. Maybe I should try figuring out if I can write." And at that point, I was already kind of quite immersed in the English language as a whole. Um, you know, it just requires it from like switching my phone settings all to English, my computer settings to English, watch movies without subtitles, read books only in English, like just completely immerse myself in the language, and
wow.
just write a lot, like write short stories, write chain of consciousness,
That's
things that they're
impressive.
never going to be published. And then I started really writing, and actually I at the time in 2017 I wasn't back to the fantasy train because I was for many many years like I didn't pick up a single fantasy book
Mhm.
uh, due to mostly being in college, and college kids are snobbish and they only want to read the literary
Mhm.
giants of
Right.
whatever. And so I was kind of ditched fantasy for many years, and then in 2018 I really picked it up again, and I was like, yeah, this makes a lot more sense to me because I had read tons of fantasy books as a kid. So I knew
Mhm.
all the tropes still, I knew all the genres. I just wasn't caught up to what is being written at that time. And then, it keeps going from there. And my wife was like, do you enjoy it? Like, do you like writing? And I was like, yeah, I really, really do actually. Even if I made this decision to myself, which was like, even if no one ever wants to read my stuff, I'm still going to keep writing
Wow.
because I just love it. It's like, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't spend my, all my free time after work sitting at the desk where I also work, uh, just writing. So it's like
Mhm.
I do it because I really love it. And I love spending time in characters' heads. I love world building. I love figuring out plot lines and how they can, be tangled or not. Yeah, I love everything that has to do with writing. And I think I would still be doing it even if my book had completely flopped and I failed to get ARC readers to read it, and readers didn't really like it. I don't think I would be discouraged by that, because I just really love the act of writing.
I always tell my wife, she's a graphic designer, and sometimes are better times financially than others, and we're all self-critical and this and that. I said, look, you're never failing if you're following what you love to do, and it will every single time it'll work out. Like, hard work doesn't fail you; it works out in one way or another every time. If you follow your heart and work hard and do your best as you can, man, that's the true, in my opinion, that's the true story of like succession, like being successful. I think that's the coolest story ever.
I think you cannot be successful if you're not passionate, but also like consistent and determined. I think those are the three things that you really need to be. Like, and success can mean whatever you want it to mean, right? Like,
Exactly.
for maybe some people, success is basically just having one reader pick up the book. That's a success. Or having 100 readers pick up the book, or 1,000. Like, you get to define what success means to you. And yeah, it's I think it's true, and it's like you really need those things, but in the end, it's really down to you.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So you're in the middle of writing Seeds of War. What's your writing process? Do you have a daily like word count that you have to get to? So what do you do personally?
Yeah, so I've actually just kind of evolved as I went along. So like when I first started drafting Seeds of War, I was still really kind of, I mean, I wasn't in the beginning of my writing journey, but I was still not I was not as close to writing a full book as I thought I was at the time. Um, and then I realized that when I finished it. But it's essentially, I was just kind of free flowing with just a basic outline, and then I realized, okay, there's three entire plot lines here that converge in the book. You need to be extremely careful about this, or otherwise people are going to put the book down because of bad pacing or something. So then what I did is I stopped writing, and I went back and I expanded my outline to a massive extent. Like, I basically, my outline became, instead of like maybe like a page or two, it became like 100 pages.
Oh wow.
It was essentially what I would call the draft zero of the book.
Okay.
And yeah, and it was, obviously the outline, a lot of things that I had in the outline didn't actually make sense when I was writing it. So I ended up changing, and I went back and changed things. So I would say the first draft of Seeds of War, like, it was kind of a chaotic experience that I didn't really want to replicate with other books that I had written afterwards. But the good news is that the more you write, the more you learn with the process. And the more you learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So I would say writing Seeds of War was like still quite a steep learning curve in many ways. But for example, so I think I took like 4 or 5 months just to get the first draft done. And I must have done at least 8 drafts of Seeds of War.
Okay.
And then, the editor came, my editor, I love my editor, Sarah Chorn. And she
That's
came
so
in,
cool.
and she really gave me some really like tough pills to swallow, like
As
developmentally.
all editors really do, right?
Man, and she was right, like she said, this doesn't make sense. Like, you need to go back and change this stuff, and this thing doesn't make sense at all. And something that she said that didn't make sense was a plot line that's actually extremely important to the whole book's concept. So, it was a hard pill to swallow, but I think people would not have responded so positively to the book if I hadn't made those changes. So, all of this stuff and all of this is about improving and just getting better as we go. So all of that learning curve that I did while writing Seeds of War made me, for example, Ruins of Smoke, I must have written the novella in like less than a month, maybe like 2 weeks,
Wow.
3 weeks. And the first draft for my upcoming book, the book 2 in the series, which is called Thorns of War.
That's
And that one, I think I did the first draft. That was insanely quick. I must have drafted the whole first draft in 50 days. So it's like a
Are
month
you
and a half.
serious?
Yeah.
That is
Because
incredible.
I tried something. I tried something. I think a lot of writers that I admire and that I really respect. They mentioned they use something called the kitchen clock method or the Pomodoro method, whatever you want
I've
to
been
call it.
taking notes this whole time, just in case you're wondering why I keep looking down. So I'm
Oh
still
no,
taking
that's
notes. I
fine.
love this. What's it called again?
It's called the kitchen tomato clock method, and or the
Okay.
Pomodoro method or something like that. And it's essentially basically productivity sprints. So what I would do is I would write for 25 minutes, and then I would just pause, do whatever for 10 minutes, like switch my brain off, or read a bit, or play with my phone,
Hmm.
and then I would do another 25 minutes of really hard and deep writing, and then
How
I would
long
do
were
it
these
all over again.
pauses?
Yeah, until I reach my word count, basically. Uh,
So you write, but then you pause, right, to play on your phone or kind of take a break. How long are those breaks?
those are like around 10 minutes, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variations of this. Some people do 30 minutes instead of 25, and then some people take 5-minute breaks instead of 10-minute breaks. And you can kind of adapt it. Like I played around with it, and I think 25 minutes or 30 minutes really works well for me. And I think pausing 10 minutes gives me more of a buffer than 5 minutes does. But it also takes longer to achieve my goal, because if I have to have a lot of 10-minute breaks in between, then it takes me longer to get my word count. But essentially I did it. Within 52 days I had the first draft done.
Wow.
Now I cannot say how good the draft is or how bad, because I haven't really read it since I the yeah, it's the draft might not still be very good. It's after the kitchen tomato clock method, but at least I got the draft done. And once you get it
I feel
done,
like that's got to be the biggest hurdle because, like, going back to your editor, uh, essentially, from what I hear you saying, she equipped you with the tools you needed to further gain the success of publishing something to be proud of and easy to follow. Um, and I think that's the essential job of an editor. I think she gave you
yeah,
constructive criticism. Sure, I wouldn't have taken it well. I don't think we ever take criticism very well, but I think that if we take it serious and in a productive manner, we can use it positively. And it seems like you did that, which is really hard for all of us to do. Bravo. That's
yeah.
really cool. Um, so I like that method too. That sounds extremely productive. I've never heard of that. And
It's very productive. I think I saw Zamil Akhtar mention that method once, and I think Ryan Cahill also mentioned it. And I was like, okay, these two authors, I really respect them. And
yeah,
if they're using
absolutely.
this, if they're using this method and they're being successful at it, then maybe I should give it a go. And it really kind of gave me the structure that I needed, and like the discipline that I needed to like put my head down and just write. And that was really good in that sense, because like the economy that I can do, like I can get so much word count done without pantsing around and without spending hours just looking at doing nothing. So yeah,
Yeah,
it worked really well.
and there's a lot of research. How long can we really concentrate on something productively? Uh, I'd
Yeah,
like to look more into that research. I'm a information guru. I love those little facts and stuff. And I think that method was probably born out of something regarding those
oh
facts.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Corey says, "Would you mark up your current success to research for betas, arcs, etc.? Us indies are always reaching for that success that others find, and I think we tend to help each other more often than others." So
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
he's
I
asking.
think the yeah, it's a really hard path to walk, I think. And I think I was part lucky that I think my book was received so well so early on. But at the same time, I think I also decided to walk the long and hard path, uh, just in the steps that I took, because a lot of people, they do open calls for betas and they do open calls for ARC readers. So what they
True.
do is they do like a form, or like maybe like a Google form, and they post it on
I've
Twitter.
seen a
They
lot of
post it
those
on,
lately.
yeah, and they post it on Instagram, and that's fine. You know, maybe you get a few people every now and then, like they want to read your book before it's out. But I think the approach that I took was a lot more of a bespoke approach, right? Because I researched each reviewer and each blogger, each booktuber like individually. Like I
Mhm.
reached out to them knowing exactly what books they like, what books they don't like, and I messaged them directly, kind of in a way that indicated that. You know, it's like I have this book. I think it might scratch your need for this kind of book that you
Sure.
also really like. And I don't know if that always works every single time, but it worked for me. And it's I think instead of doing an open call with Google Docs, I started researching these bloggers and everyone that I could think of. So I made it an Excel spreadsheet. I came up with the entire list, and then I messaged them individually because I think it's like
Wow.
it's a personal touch really makes a difference. So like yeah, I did spend tons of hours just like talking to people,
Yes.
sending messages, and I think it paid off, but like I can't say that it would work the same way for everybody else, but obviously, but
Well,
it did work for
what
me.
what I hear you saying is instead of offering my advanced reader's copy to every Joe Schmo and whatever out there who's gonna look at my post and say, "Oh, I'd love to be somebody that reads that before the rest of the people do," and then take your time and say, "Hey, I'm interested," not really thinking it through. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably a big hurdle that all authors in this beta area you're talking about. So the fact that you took the extra time and put even more loyalty in the people who read your books is just even more that commendable because that is very time consuming. Wow.
Yeah, because if you're I think like I mean at least for me, like I like to be approached like a person. Like I don't want to be like, you know, if, for example, if I think most of my ARC readers would probably not pick up books from those Google forms because it requires them having to sign up, have to put all your data in, have to
Right.
say how experienced you are and all that stuff. And I think those forms are fine. I'm not criticizing the people who use those forms. But for me, like I personally, I've never signed up with one of those forms. But if someone comes up to me directly, knowing exactly what I like to read, which shows that they've done their research and they're tailoring their entire message to me, like
Yeah.
that's the best way to be approached, in my opinion. So it's like that's how I thought about it, and I just talked to
Any
people directly.
yeah, any way you can be relatable, number one, that's pretty important. But more important to me at least is personable.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
if somebody is shaping their message to me based on what they know about me that they took their time to research and learn about me, wow, that right off the start, it's a good relationship because you took the choice to message me, which means you've seen what I'm interested in, and in some which way you've come up with a conclusion that we'll get along as far as
yeah.
what I think you're going
And
to
I
read.
think a
That's
lot
really
of
cool.
I think something that could have helped as well is the fact that because I'd been researching them for so long, like I was also like just as a reader, as a fantasy lover in general, like I was already following most of them, you know, like wherever platforms they're in, you know, like on Instagram, on Twitter, or on BookTube, wherever it was. Like I was already following them. So like I knew, oh yeah, like this person is always posting about these videos. This is the kind of stuff that they like, and that person is more into this, so maybe I won't approach them because they don't really like epic fantasy that much. Like they like fantasy, but maybe not for adults. So I'm not going to go with them. And
Sure.
you know, like I watch a lot of BookTube and I read a lot of book reviews. I scour all the blogs all the time. So it's like, you know, I'm also kind of involved in the community in a way, just as a reader and as a fantasy lover. So it's like,
Sure.
you know, when people post their links and their blogs and everything, like I read it. I actually read it. I take the time to read it. I think about what kind of tropes they like, what kind of stuff they like, and yeah, and I think it's like because if you're just like in the community and you're just interacting, but you don't actually consume the content that people put out, then you know, like you can be fine. It's fine. You can be in the community. You don't have to watch and read everything from everyone. But
Mhm.
you know, if you're in the community, then be in the community, be
Be
part of the community.
proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, don't just you're bored and you want something to do. You're actually taking part in being proactive, productive, and positive.
Exactly.
I absolutely agree with you, and that's really cool. And I think that we all get a sense for those who are really deep into it that in that way. Uh, it's really easy to tell. I think
Yeah.
it
I
just
think. I think.
passion shows its face really easily. I think I don't know.
Yeah. I think in the being in the community is and I think some people are very intimidated by social media. I think there's a lot of really shy authors because being an author and
Yes,
being a writer is such a lonely kind of endeavor, right? It's you write with your door closed, and you know, like you're just home all the time, and you don't really. Many of us really don't like social media. It's just kind of something we have to do to promote ourselves.
right.
But you know, it's like you have to kind of learn to love it in a way. Like it's like if you don't love it, that's fine, absolutely fine. I think some authors don't even have social media presence, but
Today you
if,
kind of have to market yourself
yeah,
that
it's
way.
like if you don't have to, but like you're doing yourself a disservice by not doing that. And if you have a
Yeah,
social media presence, then why not use it to your favor? And like why not if you if you're if you don't really like it, then why don't you just do it professionally and think about it? Okay, what do I need to do? Think of it as a job, right? It's like a lot of people do jobs that they don't necessarily like uh, because it's part of something that they like or allows them something that they like. So it's like you would like to people to pick up your book. So what do you need to do to get people to pick up your book? And like, does posting on social media help? Then if it does, then you have to post on social media. So
sure.
it's yeah, it just kind of goes like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people that I've talked to about doing an interview, and a couple that I have done interviews with, it was their first, and when I first spoke about the interview, well, it was a really scary thing. Well, at first it was for me too, and I've gotten to really be comfortable with it, and I enjoy the heck out of it because people are just awesome. Everybody's different, and I love that. But it's always a scary thing, I think, at first. Uh, and I think if
Yeah,
you
it's
just
scary.
go, yeah, I think if you just kind of put yourself out there, because there was a quote that I heard. I'm paraphrasing. It goes something like this: "You can't be pissed off about the opportunities you didn't get if you didn't take the opportunities presented to you. And don't be
Yeah.
mad that you didn't get this job if you didn't apply for it. You know, that kind of deal." And I thought I
And
took that
there's
super deep, and I was like, you know what?
yeah,
That's right. I'm putting myself out there.
and there's another line that really fits nicely with what you just said, which is you can be lucky, but you're never going to be lucky if you're not prepared for when luck strikes.
Ooh, yeah.
So, you know, it's
Ooh,
like if you can be the luckiest person in life, but if you don't have everything set up, if you haven't done all the little things right, then when luck strikes, you can't really capitalize on it, or
mm,
you only get a little boost maybe of something, and like you're not you know magnifying it as much as you could have.
I like that. That's a good one. What was another really? Oh, it's right here in front of me. One second, I gotta grab it. I think you'll like it. It's actually out of Andy Peliquin's Dark
Oh
Blade.
yeah, I
I
have that
read
book
it.
on my Kindle. Yeah,
I read it and I was like, oh, you know those certain quotes that just hit you. Here, I'll read it to you. It is. Bear with me, folks. A man often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. Oh, I
yeah,
was like, dang, dude, that's got to be one of my favorite quotes by now.
yeah.
It just
That's
hits
awesome.
that
Yeah.
point
And
home
Andy is
so
a
hard.
really nice guy, by the way. Like I don't know if
He is.
you've spoken to him, like, but he's
Yeah,
a
we have
really
an
nice
interview
guy.
for him. I can't wait to
He helped
speak
me a
with him.
lot, like just chatting about craft and kind of the business side of things. He's a great guy.
And that's really the epitome of kind of what I was talking about earlier, and you were too. You touched on it also. Uh, most he's such a giving his time. You know, I did an indie spotlight. It was before I had spoken to you about our interview, but he was so he. I asked him like the last second, and he sent me a video for the collaboration. Just yeah, and if you ever need anything else, just please get a hold of me. It's like what a good human. And this community is full of good people.
Yeah.
So it just even drives that point that we were talking about earlier home even farther.
Yeah.
If you said one book I have to read before I die, what would that be?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because yeah, I'm really struggling just with one book, you know,
That's a
because
hard question.
yeah, it's a really hard question, and I've had a lot of time to think about it, but I'm not really sure if I have a great one. So like as you can see, like my middle shelf here is like full of Joe Abercrombie books.
Ooh,
And I mean I just love his writing.
yes.
And
How is that
I
his
would
first
say,
book, by the way? The Blade
yeah,
itself. How is that your first book? Really? He's just
yeah,
showing off.
yeah, exactly. And I guess I'm gonna go with maybe this is um, kind of a weird choice just for Abercrombie because every single book he puts out is better than the previous. But I would say maybe The Heroes from him,
Ooh,
because it's a self-contained story. Of course, it's set in the world of the First Law, and it's got characters that had some cameos in other books and were main characters in other books. But The Heroes, it really it is one. It's a fantasy book, so if we are interested in just like kind of like fantasy book in itself, it does really like a great job at portraying war and battle like, without glorifying it.
okay.
So to me that's amazing in itself.
That's
And
exciting because I haven't gotten there yet.
yeah, and be ready because it's amazing.
I
It's
can't
it's
wait.
an epic journey, man. It's yeah, it's a great book about what like you know a lot of the kind of heroic fantasy tends to go with a route of like, and I slayed the demons and I saved
Sure.
everyone and I'm like the hero, and you know there's the glory in battle and all that stuff, and Abercrombie really throws that out of the window in The Heroes. It really shows the nasty and kind of like how pervasive some of this stuff is. And I think just from the themes itself, that book is worth a read. And I think if you like fantasy, there's no way in hell that you're not going to find something to enjoy about this book. If you're someone who enjoys like prose, it doesn't have to be lyrical prose, but he has such a snappy, engaging prose
I've
that
never laughed harder suddenly, like belly laugh, just out of the blue. My wife's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I was like, I don't know. Just what I just read was the funniest shit I've ever heard in my life, and I don't even know why.
yeah.
Like,
And that's the
just
thing,
he's
like
the
the
only
way
person
he
that's ever
kind of
done that.
yeah, and the way he blends like the humor with some really dark and heavy themes, and it doesn't do it in a lighthearted way. You know, it's like
No,
it shows you how vicious and dark and grim and nasty things can be, and still they're funny
he
sometimes. You
finds
know, it's
some
like
way to make you laugh your ass off in the midst of it. Like, what
yeah,
a what a mystery it is to
yeah.
write that. You know.
He is. I think he is special, and I think. How many books in are have you read in this series?
So I'm actually only on Before They Are Hanged.
Okay, okay, yeah. So that's pretty good.
There's
You've
certain
already
series
done.
that I put for special. I'm really into indie stuff right now. Like your books are on my schedule now for review. And I've actually recently, I'm not putting a whole lot on my schedule for review because I have a lot of stuff to read. And when I finally do get back to reading more traditionally published,
Yeah,
uh, which, you know, my heart's in indie, so I'm thoroughly enjoying that. But when I do find that special time, I'm going to be reading the rest of Joe Abercrombie and The Lord of the Rings. I've never read The Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movies, but I'm saving that for when my 4-year-old's probably 8 or 9. I'm going to get
nice.
the illustrated Hobbit, and we'll start with that.
That's very
So,
nice. Yeah,
yeah, I think it'll be really fun. So, yeah, but I get what you're talking about because I read, before I started my YouTube thing, I read The Blade itself in like 2 or 3, 4 days, just devoured it. I
yeah.
just
And
thought
it
to
gets
myself,
better. Like to be honest, like I think The Blade itself is the weakest book that he's written.
wow,
Like
that's
I'm genuinely
exciting.
thinking like yeah, it's
Wow.
the last book. The so just to kind of like finish this. The last book, the Wisdom of Crowds, I think is the last one. Yeah, it's the last one. I was listening to the audiobook. It's one of the best audiobooks I've ever
Dude,
listened to. The
Stephen
performance is amazing.
Pacey is
Stephen Pacey,
amazing.
yeah,
Oh,
he's amazing. And I was listening to it, and I saw the stats on my Audible app, and I listened to like 8 hours of that book in one day in
oh
August
my
last year,
gosh.
like a year ago. So that was something, like I don't
Sure.
think I've ever just done 8 hours in a row of a book ever
That's a
before.
chunk.
So yeah, and it was worth every single minute. So it's just really, really good.
So yeah, it's like, okay, Joe, Mr. Joe over here. Not only were you born with this exquisite writing ability, but you get Stephen Pacey to read your books too. Like, what's going on, man?
Yeah,
Where'd you sell your soul?
yeah,
But,
exactly.
So cool, man. I think that's awesome for him. I'm happy that he's being so successful, and I really hope the movie that they have, what is it for? Best Served Cold. I hope that really happens.
I'm really looking forward to it.
And honestly, just from what he said, I kind of keep up with it. It seems to be going that way. I know there's like a writer's strike, so I don't really pay much attention to that, but that's kind of holding things up from what I understand. But I think that it'll eventually get there.
It should, yeah. It would be a disaster if it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. I think just his fans alone hearing that there's going to be a movie, it's going to do so well. It's going to be taken so well. I think it's going to be a thing. So,
and if you ask me, I hope it brings a new chapter of like grimdark IPs back into like mainstream, just like Game of Thrones did with the series. Like that seems like grimdark is kind of dying out a little bit, and now at least the trends are on the low end. So I really hope that if the adaptation comes, it really brings a lot of these like really awesome kind of more dark books out.
That would be really cool. I'm always down for a dark read. And it's one of the first things that like catches my ear. Because life can be this beautiful, and having kids and stuff, it's like sometimes an escape to the darkness that could be there is like, I don't know, maybe that's my reason for loving it. It's like
I'm with you 100%.
It's like there's a possibility in this life to experience that, but doing the right thing in my real life, it's like it's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to like that. So I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Who are a couple authors that had their hand in shaping how you write?
Oh yeah, definitely Abercrombie on that side. Just not in terms of the writing style, because I find his writing style so unique, and I really can't copy him. And I'm not as funny as he is, like by any stretch of imagination. But I kind of like the grittiness of his books. I also really like Brendan Sanderson, not for the noble bright kind of vibes, but for the world building that he does. It's just got a lot of original world building, especially in the Stormlight Archive. I really respect that he basically built all these worlds with different ecologies and all this stuff from scratch, and it's something that I kind of aspire to and I really admire. I didn't build entire worlds of different ecology, but I have fantasy creatures that I made up myself. So there's a bit of influence there. The magic system was also kind of, in a way, like influenced by some of his magic systems, and also by Brian McClellan's Powder Mage trilogy, which I really like. Yeah, I mean, I think those. Yeah, I think I also like there's a little wave of these kind of more grimdark authors that I also really like. I like the Mike Shackle's We Are the Dead.
Ooh, I just got the first. It was unavailable for such a long time. They sold out, and the publisher wasn't printing or something. There was an issue. And
it's a
I finally
severely
got
underrated series. Like, it's severely underrated, and I think it's. I think more people need to pick it up.
That's the consensus. Really I haven't heard from anybody who's read it that says differently than what you just said. I've also heard like, I want to interview Mike Shackle to find out what went wrong with him for him to write such dark shit. So I had to pick it up. I had to. So yes, I hear great things.
Whenever you do, I'll be here listening.
All right. Oh, thank you, man. That's great. I appreciate that. So Joe Abercrombie, and you've got Brian McClellan, and you've got Brandon Sanderson. Well, I think that those are great inspirations. So I forgot to say earlier, along with Joe Abercrombie, the rest of what he's written, Lord of the Rings, Brandon Sanderson is another special time author because I know I'm going to love it. I haven't read a lot of it yet. I've read Elantris and I really liked it, but I know there's better to be read. And,
yeah, I think he's so I've a lot of my friends actually don't like Brandon Sanderson because I think if your reading taste tends to lean a bit more grim dark, and you really like kind of like gritty characters and gritty worlds and things like that, then you might find him too goody. You know, a lot of his characters like kind of are more in the heroic type, and they try to do the right thing and all of that. But in general, I think there's a lot to like there as well. You know, I really like the world building, like I said, the characters, the magic systems, the setting. Yeah, it's just really, I think there's a lot to like.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for that. Well, so where can me and my viewers and everybody find your stuff and the links that you want to give everybody? My dork 2-year-olds in the background. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
So give us all your links and where we can find all your stuff, man.
Yeah, so basically, if you follow me on social media, my bio has pretty much all the links. But essentially, my Seeds of War is available on all the retailers in paperback. And if you want the ebook, you got to go with Amazon or with Kindle Unlimited. And
so Barnes and Nobles, Amazon.
Yeah, Barnes and Nobles, it should be on the online store, not on physical shops, but if you go on the online store, if you type in Seeds of War, Ruins of Smoke, it should show up there.
Okay, great.
And yeah, it's pretty much so. All the paperbacks should be available on the major stores online. And
I think it's so cool in 2023 that you can write a book and pay Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, or I don't know the process, to be honest with you. Well, you can essentially, you know, you're self-publishing, man. It really is just so cool to be. Sorry, I just had to say that. I think it's so cool. It's given you as a writer much more tools than it gave people in the 70s or the 60s, the ability to get their work out there and to be influenced. You know, it's just really cool. I don't know.
It really is. And especially like me coming from a country where like I didn't really get a lot of fantasy or sci-fi growing up. Like I had the same ones that get traditionally published on the same library every single day. So it's yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's really cool to see that it's available now, especially my book. Like it's really cool to see that, for example, sometimes like Italy or Germany or India have like a lot of people reading on Kindle Unlimited, for example.
That's cool.
And it's so exciting to see that because I can actually track that data, and I can see that Amazon shows me how
That's
many
another
people from
thing,
which
the
market.
information age. Like you can find out who's reading your book, how much they're reading, and how much. Yeah, that's just cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right. So, well, we've got your links. We got a really good story. I'm so happy with our talk. I'm even happier with the fact that you agreed to sit and talk with me for a little bit and share your time with me. I've had a blast, and until next time, I absolutely want to have you on again. We'll have like I like to tell people I'd like to have a discussion video. I think those are always so fun.
Yeah, man,
not really
anytime.
a spoiler discussion, but once I know your characters and I know your prose and what kind of tropes we're working with, I'm able to pick your brain a little more. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'm definitely down for that. You know, it's also like a pleasure for me to be invited even, you know, it's like anytime you need me, I'll just say my name and I'll come and I'll be here.
That is so generous of you, and I really appreciate that. As somebody who really just enjoys what I'm doing, it's the epitome of it, really. Well, like I said, I've had a blast. We've got your links. I hope everybody who watches this now and in the future just enjoys the heck out of it. So,
thank you.
again, I want you to have a magnificent night. I know it's a little later there. I'm keeping you up.
Yeah, it's fine. It's only like what 9-10 p.m. Yeah, it's like 10:45. It's still very early. I'm still
Yeah, for
probably
an
gonna watch.
author, that's early, right?
Yeah, I'm still probably gonna watch like the UFC or something like that. That's on tonight. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds incredible, man. Well, I hope you
Yeah.
really enjoy that. You deserve it. And really, until next time, man, I hope all well and all my best wishes to you.
Likewise, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And for everybody that watched and who will watch, thank you for tuning in to my channel, Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. And until next time, stay inspired and be creative.